She had always loved music. From the time she could remember, the sound of a piano made her heart beat faster and her mind feel free. Even though she didn't have a piano at home, she would hum tunes softly while she walked to school or tapped imaginary keys on the kitchen counter. Everyone around her seemed to notice her excitement for music, but not everyone was kind about it. Some kids in her class would laugh when they saw her moving her fingers in the air, as if she were playing the piano. "Why do you even try?" they would whisper. "You'll never be good." She tried not to listen, but the words hurt more than she wanted to admit. Her parents had always been supportive in their quiet way. They didn't have much money, but they tried to encourage her passion. Sometimes they would play old recordings of famous pianists for her, hoping she would learn from the sound of their music. She loved listening to them, imagining herself sitting at a grand piano, her fingers moving with the same elegance. She practiced in secret whenever she could, trying to keep her dream alive despite the teasing from others. School was a challenge. She loved to learn and was curious about many things. But the moment anyone mentioned music, she felt the eyes on her. Some classmates would giggle as soon as she picked up a notebook to practice a melody or hum a song under her breath. Teachers sometimes didn't notice, but the hurtful whispers and smirks of her peers made her want to hide her passion. Even when she tried to ignore it, it seemed to follow her everywhere, like a shadow she could not shake. One afternoon, she discovered an old keyboard at a thrift store. It was not fancy, the keys were a little sticky and the sound was tinny, but to her it was a treasure. She saved every penny she could from odd jobs and small chores until she could bring it home. That day, she felt a spark she had not felt in a long time. She placed the keyboard carefully in her small bedroom, wiped off the dust, and pressed a key. The sound that came out was simple, but it felt magical. She closed her eyes and let her fingers move, creating melodies that had lived in her mind for years. Her first real attempt at playing in front of someone else was in the living room for her parents. She was nervous, her hands shaking slightly, but she wanted them to hear what she had learned. She pressed the keys, making mistakes here and there, but the music flowed. Her parents smiled, clapping gently, encouraging her. Their applause meant more than any recognition she could have received at school. For the first time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could be good enough. But the outside world was not so kind. The next day at school, someone had seen her practicing through the window. The teasing returned, louder and crueler than before. "Look at her. She thinks she's a pianist." They laughed. She felt her face grow hot and a lump formed in her throat. She wanted to run away and hide. She tried to focus on her studies, on reading and writing, anything to keep her mind off the ridicule. But music called to her like a whisper in her heart she could not ignore. After school, she would retreat to her room, sit at her keyboard, and let the music drown out the world. She practiced slowly, repeating notes and phrases until they felt right. Sometimes she would stay up late into the night, letting the moonlight fall on the keys as her fingers moved. Her parents would peek in and smile softly, proud of her determination. Despite the teasing and the doubt, she refused to give up. Music was not just a hobby. It was a part of her, something she could not imagine living without. One rainy afternoon, while the water tapped lightly against the window, she discovered a piece of sheet music in a library book she had borrowed. It was complicated, more than anything she had attempted before, but something about it called to her. She brought it home and stared at it for hours, trying to understand the notes, the rhythm, the flow of the music. Her fingers struggled at first, hitting wrong keys, creating jarring sounds, but she did not give up. Slowly, with persistence, she began to get it right. The melody came alive under her hands, soft and gentle at first, then more confident and full of life. The teasing at school never stopped entirely, but she began to notice something else. A few classmates would watch quietly when she hummed or tapped on a desk. They didn't laugh, didn't mock. They just watched. She didn't know if they were interested or just curious, but it gave her a small sense of pride. Maybe, she thought, there were people who understood her, even if only a little. She began to dream bigger. She imagined performing in front of a crowd, seeing the surprise on people's faces when they realized how much talent she had. She thought about the joy she could bring to others with her music, the emotions she could share without saying a single word. It became more than a personal escape. It became a mission. She wanted to show the world that passion and hard work could shine, even when others doubted her. Her friends outside of school, the ones she met in her neighborhood, started to notice her dedication. They would sometimes ask her to play small tunes, and even though her heart raced with nervousness, she played. Their smiles and encouragement felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. It reminded her why she loved music in the first place. Despite all the mockery and doubt, she realized that she had the power to bring happiness, even if only to a few people at a time. Every day after school, she would sit at her keyboard, practicing new pieces, improving her skills, learning to express herself more clearly. The keys became an extension of her emotions. Each note a word, each melody a sentence in the story she wanted to tell. She could feel herself growing stronger, not just as a musician, but as a person who refused to be broken by the opinions of others. She also began keeping a small journal, writing down her thoughts, her dreams, and the music she wanted to create. She sketched melodies on paper when she could not play, imagining how they would sound. This private world became her sanctuary, a place where she could nurture her talent without fear. The more she immersed herself in it, the more confident she felt. Music was no longer just a dream, it was becoming a reality. One day her teacher announced a school talent show. Her stomach turned with nerves and excitement. This was her chance to perform in front of everyone, to show what she had been working on for so long. But with the excitement came fear. She knew the mocking eyes would be there waiting for a mistake. She considered backing out, telling herself it wasn't worth it. Yet deep down, she knew that this was exactly the moment she had been preparing for. That evening, she sat at her keyboard, practicing the piece she had been perfecting for weeks. Her fingers moved more confidently than ever before. She remembered the laughter, the whispers, the moments she had almost given up. But she also remembered her parents' smiles, the quiet admiration of her friends, and the joy she felt every time she touched the keys. She took a deep breath and decided she would play no matter what. It didn't matter if people laughed or doubted her. She would let the music speak for her. As she played that night alone in her room, she felt a sense of freedom she had never experienced. Each note seemed to lift a weight off her shoulders, each chord a statement that she was not defined by the opinions of others. She played with her heart wide open, imagining herself on a stage, her fingers dancing across the keys, her music filling the room and touching the hearts of those who listened. In that moment, she was unstoppable, untouchable, and fully herself. The next day at school, something shifted. A few students watched her with curiosity instead of ridicule. Some even asked her about the music she had been practicing. Though she was nervous, she answered them with a quiet pride, realizing that the smallest gestures of courage could begin to change how others saw her. She understood that the road ahead would still be challenging, but she felt ready. For the first time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, the dream she carried so fiercely could become real. After the school talent show announcement, her days became a mixture of excitement and worry. Each morning she woke up thinking about the performance, her fingers itching to touch the keys and her heart racing at the thought of playing in front of everyone. She knew that if she wanted to show her best, she had to work harder than ever. So she dedicated herself to practice, setting aside every free moment to sit at her keyboard. Even when her body ached from long hours of sitting and her fingers felt sore from pressing the keys repeatedly. Her parents noticed her determination. Though they were tired from work, they always made time to ask how her practice was going, sometimes even offering small advice from what they remembered of their own experiences with music. Their encouragement was quiet but steady, and it gave her the strength to continue. She could feel that she was not alone in her journey, and that sense of support was priceless. Yet despite their reassurance, she still faced the mocking whispers of her classmates, who seemed to grow louder every day, teasing anyone who dared to show passion. One afternoon, a few classmates deliberately tried to hum the same tune she had been practicing, laughing and pretending it was terrible. She felt the familiar sting of embarrassment, but she refused to stop. Instead, she focused harder, determined to make her music sound even better. She realized that the more they mocked her, the more fuel she had to prove herself. It became almost a challenge, to take every insult and turn it into energy for improvement. She began experimenting with new techniques she had seen in books and videos online. She watched professional pianists perform, noting the way they moved, the way their fingers seemed to glide effortlessly over the keys. She tried to imitate their posture and expression, practicing for hours in front of her bedroom mirror, imagining herself as one of them. Though it was frustrating at first and mistakes were frequent, she learned that patience and repetition were her allies. She discovered that talent alone was not enough. Skill came from persistent effort and self-discipline. Evenings became her most productive hours. The quiet of her room, broken only by the sound of raindrops on the window or the occasional creak of the floorboards, allowed her to focus completely. She would practice scales, arpeggios, and small pieces of music, repeating them over and over until they felt smooth and natural. Sometimes she would make up her own tunes, letting her emotions guide her fingers. These original melodies felt personal, a way to express thoughts and feelings she could not yet put into words. She began to understand that music was not just notes on a page, it was a language of its own. But the path was not without obstacles. One day the keyboard stopped working properly. Some keys would stick or produce strange sounds, making her practice almost impossible. She felt a wave of frustration and sadness, wondering if all her hard work had been wasted. For a moment she thought about giving up, telling herself it was too difficult. But then she remembered the nights she had spent imagining her fingers dancing over the keys, the times she had stayed up until late hours practicing, the small victories that had made her heart soar. She refused to let this minor setback stop her. She cleaned the keyboard, fixed what she could, and adapted her practice to work around the problem, proving to herself that determination mattered more than convenience. Her school life continued to challenge her in different ways. The teasing never completely disappeared, but she began to notice small signs of respect from some classmates. A few would watch quietly while she hummed or practiced, and occasionally one would ask a genuine question about the music she was learning. These small gestures, though rare, felt like encouragement. She started to understand that not everyone would mock her, and that there were people willing to support her if she gave them a chance. This realization gave her confidence and slowly began to soften the constant pressure of ridicule. She also started seeking opportunities outside of school. Local community centers sometimes held small concerts or gatherings where amateur musicians could perform. Though she was nervous, she asked her parents if she could attend or participate in one of these events. They agreed, recognizing that she needed to experience performing for people who would appreciate her effort. The first time she stood in front of a small audience, her hands shook and her stomach was full of butterflies. But the moment she pressed the first key, she felt a strange calm wash over her. The music took over, guiding her fingers and her heart. The audience listened quietly, and when she finished, they clapped softly. It was not the largest crowd, nor was the performance perfect, but the feeling of connection was overwhelming. She realized that the joy of playing was stronger than any fear of judgment. She kept a small notebook where she wrote down observations and lessons from each practice and performance. She noted which pieces were difficult, which techniques worked, and how she felt before and after playing. This became a personal record of her growth, a reminder that each small step was important. Whenever doubt crept in, she would read through her notes and remember how far she had come. The notebook became more than just a record. It became a source of motivation and reflection. One day, while practicing a particularly difficult piece, she noticed the progression she had made. The notes that once tripped her up now flowed smoothly. The rhythm that had been impossible now felt natural. She could see improvement, and with it, a newfound sense of pride. She realized that talent alone could not have brought her this far. It was the hours of persistence, the countless mistakes corrected, the patience and the belief in herself that had shaped her growth. This insight gave her a quiet confidence that no mocking words could shake. The closer the talent show came, the more intense her practice became. Every evening was spent perfecting the piece she had chosen, adjusting the timing, expression, and dynamics to bring the music to life. She even practiced in front of her parents, asking for honest feedback, and incorporated their suggestions into her performance. The process was exhausting but rewarding, teaching her not just about music, but about discipline, focus, and resilience. Amid all this, she still had moments of doubt. Sometimes she would imagine the laughter of her classmates, the sneers and mocking comments, and feel her courage falter. But she learned to push these thoughts aside. She reminded herself why she loved music, why she had started in the first place, and what joy it brought her. She understood that fear and doubt were natural, but they did not define her ability to succeed. Each practice session became an act of defiance, a statement that she would not let negativity control her life. In these quiet moments of reflection, she also began to imagine her future. She saw herself on a stage, the audience captivated by the music she played. She pictured the faces of people moved by the melodies, and she felt a sense of purpose growing inside her. It was not about fame or recognition, but about sharing something beautiful, something that could touch hearts in a way words could not. This vision became a guiding light, pushing her to continue, no matter how difficult the path seemed. As the talent show approached, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, a blend of anticipation and anxiety. She knew that performing in front of her peers would be challenging, but she also knew she was ready. The weeks of practice, the late nights, the perseverance through ridicule and setbacks had prepared her for this moment. She had grown stronger, not just as a musician, but as a person who could face fear and uncertainty with courage. The day before the show, she stayed up late, playing the piece she had been perfecting. Her fingers moved confidently over the keys, each note resonating with the effort and emotion she had poured into it. She could hear the music in her mind as much as in her ears, imagining the sound reaching every corner of the room, touching everyone who listened. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that regardless of the outcome, she had given her all. She was ready for the next step, ready to face the audience and let her music speak for her. The morning of the talent show arrived with a strange mix of excitement and nerves. She woke early, her stomach fluttering as if 1,000 butterflies had taken residence there overnight. The keyboard she had practiced on countless hours at home felt like a friend she hadn't seen in days, and she knew it would be her anchor during the performance. Yet the thought of standing in front of an entire audience, facing the same classmates who had mocked her for years, made her chest tighten with anxiety. She reminded herself that this was the moment she had worked toward, the moment where her efforts and dreams would meet reality. She spent the morning practicing one last time, carefully going through the piece she had been perfecting. Each note, each pause, each subtle shift in rhythm was etched into her memory. Her hands moved almost automatically, a rhythm built from months of repetition, practice, and determination. Yet, despite the confidence she felt in her skill, doubts continued to creep in. What if she made a mistake? What if they laughed? What if all the preparation was not enough? She shook her head, trying to push the worries aside, and focused on the music that had always been her refuge. At school, the hallways buzzed with excitement and chatter. Students discussed costumes, jokes, and who they thought would win. Some of her classmates who had mocked her were there too, whispering and smirking. She felt the familiar sting but did not let it control her. She reminded herself that their words reflected their own insecurities, not her talent or worth. Her parents walked her to the auditorium, offering quiet words of encouragement and reassuring smiles. She felt their support wrap around her like a protective shield, giving her courage to step onto the stage. Backstage, the room was alive with nervous energy. Students warmed up, practiced lines, and fidgeted with props. She watched others, noticing how some seemed confident while others trembled like she did. She took a deep breath, centering herself, and whispered to herself, "I've worked for this. I can do this." She closed her eyes, picturing the months of practice, the small victories, and the private moments of joy she had experienced. She imagined her fingers dancing over the keys, producing music that could speak to people's hearts, and felt a spark of calm amid the chaos. When it was her turn, she walked to the stage with slow, deliberate steps. The bright lights blinded her for a moment, and the audience looked like a sea of faces, some curious, some skeptical. She recognized some of the classmates who had mocked her, their expressions unreadable but certainly attentive. Her heart pounded, but she reminded herself of everything she had learned. She sat at the keyboard, arranged her sheet music, and took a final deep breath. The room was silent except for the hum of anticipation. She pressed the first key and a soft, clear note filled the room. Her fingers moved carefully at first, each note measured and precise. Slowly, the melody began to flow, her confidence growing with each chord. The music seemed to take on a life of its own, guiding her hands as if they were extensions of her emotions. She felt the tension melt away, replaced by a sense of freedom and purpose. The mockery, the doubts, the fear, they all faded into the background as the music carried her forward. As she continued, she noticed the audience responding. Eyes widened, heads tilted, and some people leaned forward as if trying to catch every note. The same classmates who had laughed at her now sat quietly, intrigued and perhaps a little surprised. She felt a surge of determination, knowing that this was her moment to show what she could do. She played with all her heart, letting every emotion, joy, pain, hope, and perseverance flow through her fingers into the music. The piece was challenging, with complex passages that had taken weeks of practice to master. Her fingers moved quickly but gracefully, striking each key with precision and feeling. She had a few small mistakes, but instead of panicking, she adjusted smoothly, letting the music continue without faltering. She realized that imperfections were part of the performance, just as they were part of life, and embracing them made her play even stronger. The audience seemed to sense this authenticity, responding with attentive silence that encouraged her to continue. By the time she reached the final notes, her heart was racing and her palms slightly sweaty, but her spirit was soaring. She struck the last chord with a firm, confident motion, and the sound lingered in the air like a soft echo. For a moment there was complete silence, as if the room collectively held its breath. Then slowly the applause began. It started with a few hands, then grew louder, spreading across the auditorium until the room was filled with clapping, cheers, and even some whistles. She looked up, stunned, seeing people who had doubted her now applauding genuinely. Tears pricked her eyes, not from fear or sadness, but from relief and pride. She had done it. She had faced the very people who had mocked her and proven to herself that all the practice, all the struggles had been worth it. The music had spoken for her, expressing what words could not. The applause continued, some students approaching to compliment her, asking how she had learned to play so beautifully. Even the ones who had been the harshest now seemed impressed, their expressions softening as they recognized the effort behind her talent. She left the stage with a lightness she had never felt before. The weight of doubt and fear that had burdened her for so long was lifted, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and validation. Backstage, her parents hugged her tightly, their pride evident in their eyes. "You were amazing," they said softly. "We always knew you could do this." She smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks, feeling a warmth that went beyond the applause of the audience. She realized that the true reward was not the recognition alone, but the personal growth, the courage to face fear, and the ability to create something beautiful despite adversity. In the following days, the talent show became a turning point in her life. Students who had mocked her now approached with curiosity and respect, some asking for lessons or tips, others expressing genuine admiration. She felt a mix of surprise and satisfaction, understanding that people often only recognize effort after seeing results. But she also knew that her worth was not dependent on their opinions. She had learned to value her own dedication and the joy that music brought her, regardless of external validation. She continued to practice every day, but now with a deeper sense of purpose. Her confidence grew, not just in her musical abilities but in herself as a person. She realized that facing fear head-on, pushing through self-doubt and embracing persistence could overcome even the harshest ridicule. Each note she played became a statement of resilience, a reflection of her journey from uncertainty to triumph. Her journey was far from over. She knew there would be more challenges, more competitions, more skeptics, but the talent show had taught her an invaluable lesson. The courage to try, even in the face of mockery, could lead to moments of unexpected beauty and success. She was ready to face whatever came next, carrying with her the experience of triumph and the knowledge that her dedication could turn dreams into reality. In that realization, she found a quiet, steady strength that would guide her for years to come. After the talent show, life felt different for her. The applause and praise had opened a new door, showing her that people could recognize effort and talent when they saw it firsthand. But she knew that one successful performance was not the end of her journey. She wanted to grow, to challenge herself, and to keep pushing the limits of what she could achieve. Each day she returned to her keyboard with renewed purpose, ready to explore more complex pieces and develop her skills further. Her practice sessions became longer and more focused. She no longer practiced just to get the notes right. She practiced to express emotion, to make the music speak. She experimented with dynamics, tempo, and subtle shifts in rhythm, learning how to convey feelings through every key she pressed. Sometimes she would record herself and listen carefully, noticing places where she could improve. She realized that improvement was a continuous process, and that even small progress was worth celebrating. Word of her talent began to spread. A music teacher from a nearby school heard about her performance and invited her to attend a small workshop. She was nervous about being in a new environment with people she didn't know, but she also felt excited to learn and meet other musicians. At the workshop, she observed the instructors and participants paying close attention to techniques and expressions. She asked questions, tried new exercises, and listened to feedback with an open mind. Each lesson added new layers to her understanding of music, and she felt herself growing more confident and versatile. Despite these new opportunities, the teasing from a few classmates still lingered. Some would make jokes or act indifferent, but she had learned to ignore them. She realized that their mockery could no longer touch her, because she knew her own worth and had seen what dedication could achieve. The music had given her a sense of identity and purpose that no words could diminish. Each time someone tried to belittle her, she focused on her passion instead, letting her efforts and growth speak louder than their negativity. One day, she received an invitation to perform at a small local event. It was not a large audience, but it was a chance to share her music with a community she had not played for before. She spent days preparing, choosing pieces that showed both technical skill and emotional depth. She wanted her performance to tell a story, to touch the hearts of those listening. On the day of the event, she arrived early, setting up her keyboard and running through a few warm-ups. Her hands trembled slightly, but her mind was calm, ready to let the music guide her. When it was her turn to perform, she sat at the keyboard, took a deep breath, and began. The music flowed effortlessly, her fingers moving with precision and grace. The notes carried emotion, telling a story of struggle, hope, and triumph. The audience listened quietly, captivated by the sound. Some had tears in their eyes, others smiled, and a few even whispered in amazement. She felt a sense of connection she had never experienced before. The music was no longer just for her, it was for everyone who listened. As she reached the climax of her performance, she poured everything she had into the music. The room seemed to hold its breath, hanging onto each note. Her fingers danced across the keys, fast and light, then soft and deliberate, creating a tapestry of sound that felt alive. When she finally played the last note, a deep silence filled the room, followed by a powerful wave of applause. She looked up, overwhelmed by the reaction, and realized that her dedication and passion had not only been recognized, but had also touched people's hearts. After the performance, many approached her to compliment her, ask questions, and express how moved they were by her music. She answered with humility, explaining her journey and the hours of practice that had led her to this moment. People were curious, impressed, and inspired by her story. She felt a sense of pride not from the praise itself, but from knowing that her hard work, resilience, and belief in herself had made this moment possible. The experience also changed how she saw herself. She realized that her potential was not limited by the opinions of others. She had faced ridicule, self-doubt, and setbacks, and yet she had grown stronger and more confident. Music had become more than a passion. It had become a symbol of her perseverance and her ability to overcome challenges. Each performance, each practice, each small victory reinforced her belief that she could achieve what she set her mind to. Her family continued to support her, proud of how far she had come. They attended every performance they could, offering encouragement and love. Their presence reminded her that support, even if quiet or simple, could make a tremendous difference. She felt grateful for their guidance and for the home that nurtured her dreams, even when resources were limited. Their faith in her helped her keep going, even during moments of uncertainty. With every new opportunity, she grew more ambitious. She began to explore advanced techniques, experiment with different styles, and challenge herself with more complex compositions. She spent hours analyzing the works of professional musicians, trying to understand the subtleties and emotions behind each piece. The more she learned, the more she realized how vast the world of music was, and how much there was yet to discover. This understanding fueled her desire to keep improving, to push beyond her comfort zone, and to continue growing as a musician. She also began mentoring younger students who shared her passion. She taught them small pieces, offered encouragement, and shared her experiences. Guiding others gave her a sense of fulfillment and reinforced her own skills. She realized that helping others pursue their dreams was just as rewarding as achieving her own. Through teaching, she learned patience, empathy, and the importance of sharing knowledge, a lesson that extended beyond music. The mocking that had once defined her days gradually faded into the background. The same classmates who had laughed at her were now among those who acknowledged her talent, some even seeking her advice. She no longer felt the sting of their words because she had built her confidence on something stronger: her dedication, her achievements, and the love of music that had never wavered. She had transformed from a girl who hid her passion into a young musician who inspired and moved others. Through all of this, she never forgot the early days when she practiced alone in her room, when every note felt like a small victory, and when mockery threatened to make her give up. Those memories became a source of strength, a reminder of how far she had come and how important perseverance was. She learned that success was not just about talent, but about resilience, patience, and the courage to continue despite obstacles. As she reflected on her journey, she understood that music had given her more than skill or recognition. It had given her confidence, resilience, and the ability to connect with others in a way words could not. She had learned that passion, when nurtured and protected, could transform challenges into opportunities and ridicule into admiration. Each performance became a celebration of her growth, a testament to the power of perseverance and self-belief. Looking ahead, she knew there would always be new challenges, new pieces to learn, and new stages to perform on. But she was ready. She had faced fear, doubt, and mockery and had come out stronger. Her music was now a voice that spoke for her, a voice that could inspire, move, and touch the hearts of others. She had become more than just a talented musician. She had become a symbol of determination, courage, and the beauty that can emerge when someone refuses to give up on their dreams. The months following her performance were filled with new opportunities and experiences. She began performing at more events, both small and large, each time feeling more comfortable and confident in her abilities. She realized that performing was no longer just about showing skill. It was about sharing a part of herself, conveying emotion and connecting with people in ways that words could never achieve. Music had become a bridge between her inner world and the hearts of others. At school, her reputation had changed. The same classmates who once mocked her now looked at her with respect, some even asking for advice or help with their own creative projects. Though she never sought validation from others, she felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that her dedication had made people recognize her effort. She had learned that hard work and persistence could transform doubt into admiration, and she carried this lesson with her every day. Her family continued to support her, attending performances and celebrating each new milestone. Their encouragement remained her anchor, reminding her that her value was not measured by the opinions of those who doubted her, but by her commitment to her passion and the joy she derived from it. Their quiet pride fueled her ambition, and she felt a growing sense of purpose with every note she played. She also started composing her own music, creating pieces that reflected her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. These original compositions became her personal expression, allowing her to convey experiences and emotions that she could not put into words. Each composition was a story, a reflection of her growth and a testament to the power of resilience. When she played her own pieces for others, she saw the same wonder and admiration in their eyes as she had felt during her first performances, reinforcing the value of sharing her talent and story. Through her dedication, she met other musicians who shared her passion. Collaborating with them opened new horizons, teaching her different styles, techniques, and approaches to music. She learned the importance of teamwork, compromise, and mutual respect. These collaborations also reinforced her belief that music was a universal language, capable of connecting people from diverse backgrounds and experiences. She found joy in these shared creative moments, discovering that collaboration could be as fulfilling as performing solo. Despite her growing recognition, she never forgot the early days when she practiced alone, facing ridicule and doubt. Those memories became a source of strength and humility, reminding her of the importance of perseverance and self-belief. She understood that her journey had been shaped not only by talent, but by the courage to continue in the face of adversity. This awareness kept her grounded, helping her approach every performance and challenge with dedication and gratitude. She began to mentor younger students who were just starting to explore music. She shared her experiences, offered guidance, and encouraged them to pursue their passions even when faced with criticism or doubt. Mentoring gave her a deep sense of fulfillment, as she saw the same spark of enthusiasm in her students that had once driven her. She realized that her journey could inspire others, and that helping them navigate their own paths was a way to honor her own growth and experiences. Over time, she faced new challenges. Advanced pieces, complex performances, and high-pressure events tested her skills and determination. Each challenge was an opportunity to learn, adapt, and grow. She approached every obstacle with the mindset that effort and persistence would guide her through. And she discovered that resilience was as crucial as talent. Her ability to remain focused and committed even under pressure became one of her greatest strengths. The impact of her music extended beyond her immediate community. People who heard her performances were moved by the emotion and authenticity in her playing. Letters of appreciation, small gestures of gratitude, and invitations to perform at new venues began to arrive. She realized that her music could inspire and bring joy to others, creating connections that transcended words. This understanding deepened her commitment to her craft, reminding her of the purpose behind her dedication. She reflected often on the journey that had brought her to this point. From the early days of secret practice and ridicule, through moments of doubt and perseverance, to the triumphs of performance and recognition, she recognized the growth that had shaped her. She understood that every challenge, every tear, and every moment of determination had contributed to the person she had become. Music had been the constant thread, guiding her, comforting her, and empowering her to face the world with courage and grace. As she continued to perform and create, she found a balance between ambition and joy. She no longer measured success by applause or recognition alone, but by the satisfaction of knowing she had given her best and shared her passion honestly. Each note she played was a celebration of her journey, a testament to the power of persistence, and a reminder that even in the face of doubt and mockery, one could rise, shine, and inspire. Her story began to spread subtly. Through word of mouth and small local news features, people were inspired by her determination, her growth, and the way she had transformed criticism into strength. She became a symbol of hope for others who faced challenges and ridicule, showing that dedication and belief in oneself could overcome obstacles and lead to meaningful achievement. Her journey was a reminder that talent alone was not enough and that heart, courage, and effort were equally important in shaping success. She also began to explore ways to use her music to give back to the community. She performed at charity events, organized small concerts for children and elderly people, and contributed her time to support local causes. These experiences reminded her of the power of music to heal, comfort, and unite. She realized that her gift was not just for personal fulfillment, but could be a tool to bring joy and hope to others, making her journey even more meaningful. Through all these experiences, she maintained a humble perspective. She remembered the moments of doubt, the mocking voices, and the small victories that had fueled her perseverance. She understood that success was not a destination, but a continuous journey of growth, learning, and sharing. This mindset kept her motivated, focused, and grateful for every opportunity to perform, teach, or inspire others. As time passed, she became more confident in her abilities, not just as a musician, but as a person who could face challenges and persevere. She knew that life would always present obstacles, but she had learned to approach them with patience, resilience, and a focus on what truly mattered. Music had taught her lessons that extended far beyond the keyboard. Lessons about courage, dedication, empathy, and the importance of pursuing one's passion despite adversity. Looking back, she realized that the mockery, the doubt, and the setbacks had been essential parts of her journey. They had shaped her, pushed her to improve, and made her triumphs even sweeter. She had transformed from a girl who practiced in secret, worried about judgment, into a confident young musician whose talent and dedication inspired others. She had discovered that true success was not just about recognition, but about growth, resilience, and the ability to touch lives through one's passion. In quiet moments, she would sit at her keyboard and play, not for applause or acknowledgement, but for the pure joy of creating music. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, feeling gratitude for every challenge, every lesson, and every moment of perseverance. She understood that her path had been unique, filled with trials that had strengthened her character and revealed her potential. Music had been her companion, her teacher, and her voice, and it would continue to guide her for the rest of her life. Her story became a source of inspiration for those who struggled with doubt, ridicule, or fear. People saw in her journey the power of persistence, the importance of believing in oneself, and the beauty that could emerge when someone refused to give up. She had played like an angel, not just because of her talent, but because of her courage, determination, and unwavering heart. And in that, she had created a legacy that went beyond music, a legacy of hope, inspiration, and the triumph of the human spirit.